Welcome back to the Basketball Fiends podcast. After a 2-month layoff, we have returned, and yes, we are still a proud member of the Areskino Podcast Network. My name is Jesus Acevedo Jr., and with me on this journey that is the second season of the Basketball Fiends is the one and only Alex Aguilera. How the hell are you, Alex?
Man, I'm pretty damn good. Keeping busy, all that good stuff. I've been good, man. Just cruising.
Well, it's been a 2-month layoff since we last released an episode of the Basketball Fiends. I think it's probably even been maybe a couple even more weeks before we were on an episode together, because I remember early November, I think I went on vacation, and then you had guests, and then we took a break for Thanksgiving, and then I think you had something the next week, and I had a guest, and then we had to go on 2 months. So it's definitely good to get the dynamic duo back together.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Back to we almost went old school recording wise. When we first started, we almost did the Zoom thing back over again. But yeah, man, it's good to
That's how
be
long
back.
it's been, because our browsers had already reset themselves. Like, it was like
Yeah.
Splash News. So yeah, we had
Yep.
to, yeah. So speaking of dynamic duels, Alex, there was some duels that were traded for each other, because we're recording this on Thursday on the post NBA trade deadline. And I gotta say, I don't know who tweeted this. I'm gonna have to go back and see. But somebody tweeted that the NBA trade deadline should be a federal holiday, and I find that is a fact, because there is nothing better than the NBA trade deadline. Alex, tell me you were just kind of glued to your phone. I know you were at work, but every chance you got, you're like, let me just take a peek. Let me just take a
Yeah,
peek.
yeah. So like I'm at my desk, like I'm cutting something, and I usually keep my phone on vibrate, but it's like right on my desk, so like I'll see it when it buzzes, and it did one of those like it buzzed twice, like at the same time, and I'm like, okay, something went down, because it like once it buzzes like that, like I know I'm getting like two alerts like at once, and I think it was Shams. It was the Shams tweet that I saw, and I was like, holy crap. And it sucked because like I'm cutting something, I was trying to text one of my coworkers, but then he texted me. He's like, "Bro, did you see it?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude." I'm like, it happened, man. It
It
was
happened.
crazy."
Yeah, it's a situation. Like all day today, I had to finish a story for freelance work with the Houston Chronicles. So I'm just writing the story, but every chance I was okay. Let me just check Twitter. Okay, turn it off, because I really need to focus, because my deadline was today, Thursday, end of day. And I had finished like a big chunk of it, and I was like, you know what? Let me reward myself. Let me do a Twitter check.
Reward myself.
Reward myself. I wrote a good chunk. I wrote one sentence. Let me reward myself. So, right. So I checked. 2 minutes ago was the tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski. I saw it that the trade happened. The trade that we all thought was going to happen, and then we thought it wasn't going to happen, and then it was going to happen. And they're not talking. And then Steve Nash says that James Harden is not going to be traded. But yes, that trade happened. James Harden essentially traded for Ben Simmons and some other players. We'll go through the whole package, but. Yes, it was such a fascinating day, and then even after that, trades kept coming in. We had players players traded from the West to the East, making the East now the strongest conference. I think it's a tougher battle. But yes, it was a great day for all basketball fans. My Twitter was all NBA talk. All the moves that happened.
Yeah, man. I mean, the trade deadline is, like you said, damn near a national holiday for basketball fans. It's just like everyone's got their tweet notifications on, waiting for that Woj bomb, waiting for that Shams bomb, and once it hits, you're like, holy crap, and everyone's just racing, typing, like, bro, did you hear? Like, hey, what are the details? Because like it'll be like the headline trade, like okay, the main players, and then from there you're like, all right, so what are the actual details? Like, are there any draft picks involved? Are there any cash considerations? Like, whatever the case may be. So it's a frenzy, but it's fun.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I saw, because I want to see who tweeted the mega trade first. Shams or why. So I went to both of their Twitter. They both tweeted it at the same time. At the
Ooh.
same time, yeah. And I actually tweeted a photo of both of them together next to each other. It was at the same exact time. So, they're just right there, neck and neck always, But this is from Keith Smith NBA on Twitter, at Keith Smith NBA. Trade numbers from today. There were 9 trades made, 16 different teams made at least one trade, 32 players were traded. That's
Damn.
nearly damn the NBA was involved in a trade
Right.
just today. And then there were
Jeez.
some teams that people are like, okay, you didn't make a move, like the Lakers,
Right. Knicks.
Knicks. I know everybody was talking about Lakers and Knicks making a deal, not with each other, but just in general,
Right.
So got me all here mad about my Knicks fan, Mackie Torre. I know, former guest. I know he's probably mad that the Knicks didn't make a deal. But now let's get into this deal, Alex. James Harden for Ben Simmons. And now the complete package was James Harden goes to the 76ers. The Nets get Seth Curry, Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, and a 2027 first round pick. Is that
I
correct?
believe
Right.
I think it's 2 first round picks.
2 first round picks. Okay.
And
Not bad.
then Philly also got Paul Millsap.
Which I think that's a sneaky move. That's a sneaky good pickup in my opinion. He can give you a 10, 15 strong minutes and strong. Paul Millsap always gives you everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think so that was the deal. So I'll ask you first. Who do you want? Who won this trade, Alex?
Man, it's weird. It's weird. I don't want to say like both teams won the trade. I guess I would have, if I had to pick like a straight up winner, I might say Philly. Just because one, they get the big Ben Simmons monkey off their back, like that whole drama, like that should be done. Hopefully, I mean, granted, James Harden is a little bit of a disgruntled star himself, but he should be healthy. He should be good to go. I think he'd be a nice compliment with Joel Embiid as a nice little 1-2 punch over there. And also with the addition of Paul Millsap, I think that just adds a lot more depth with Philly. So I mean, I think that's a solid, upgrade for them. But at the same time, too, you look at the Nets, I mean, they gave up a lot for James Harden. I mean, they kind of went all in trying to get Kyrie, trying to get Kevin Durant. They lost a lot of assets. So, obviously Ben Simmons is the headliner of what they got out of that trade. But to be able to secure those 2 first round picks as well, I mean, they hadn't before this. I mean, they really didn't have any type of first round picks or, pretty much any type of plan for for the future. So it was good that they were able to regain some assets back.
No, I think that's exactly how I feel. Is that I think both players got what they wanted, and it's a win-win for both teams and players. But like, if I had to pick one, I would pick the 76ers for the simple fact that they got the best player in the trade, even if he's playing at 85%. Although, as Charles Barkley commented on today's Thursday's NBA on TNT,
That was funny.
That was funny, right? Harden is on a new club, so he's definitely healthy now. So we'll definitely see him out there. But look, Morey made the trade while holding on to Tyrese Maxey and Matisse Thybulle, and those are some two
Yeah.
young beasts. I know
Yeah.
they gave up those 2 first rounders, but that's in the future. 76ers want to win now. And here's something else I like that Harden has already bought in. He already signed his extension for next year. So he's already coming back next year. So to me, the 76ers have to win the title either this year or next season for all this to have it be worth it. Because after that, Harden could just bolt, but they have a season and a half to get to the championship. So that's why I do think they win. On the flip side, I think the Nets actually fit better with Ben Simmons than with James Harden, and for the simple fact that Ben Simmons is going to be their Draymond Green-esque player. Same, Draymond Green with the Warriors hardly ever shoots. He'll shoot if it's,
Yeah.
desperate, right? So that's what Simmons is. And they needed another wing defender, and that's what Simmons is going to be for them. He can play that point guard role and just kind of let Kyrie play the 2, and, KD does what he does. So I think both teams will get better, and I know everybody wants to see the matchup in the playoffs. That would be so much fun.
Well, I think they play against each other March 10th, so that
March
matchup's
10th.
coming up pretty quick. But yeah, no, I mean, to your point about it, like pretty much each team got what they wanted. Like I will say with Brooklyn and Ben Simmons, like I think that's a nice fit. It's a situation for Ben Simmons where, he isn't expected to be, you know, that second punch that he used to be in Philly, where it's like, okay, if Joel Embiid's having an off night, it's all right. Ben Simmons needs to crash the lane because we know damn well he ain't gonna shoot. And in Brooklyn, guess what? They're not gonna expect him to shoot.
Yeah.
He can facilitate the floor that he's most comfortable with. And hey, if Kyrie wants to be the ball dominant guy, I mean, granted, he's a point guard, but he's more of a scorer. So hey, he can dish it out to Kyrie. He can let KD do his thing. So I mean that pressure is alleviated off of him, and not to mention that Seth Curry's tagging along with them too. So I mean, if he wants to toss it to him for a spot up three, there's that as well. Like I still kind of forget about Andre Drummond. I feel like
Andre Drummond
like once he left Detroit, he just sort of like he's still in the
traveling
league,
around.
but
He's getting around.
right, he's sort of bounced around a little bit, and you're just kind of like, oh wow, like he's like now he's in Brooklyn, like he was in Detroit for all these years, and now he just like bounced around, all of a sudden. But like you said, I think each team got what they wanted, and I think just the situations that each of those big guys were in, they got out of, and they're like, hey, it's a fresh start. This is kind of like where I want to be. But to your point too with James Harden, I mean, it looks like he'll be there for next year, but it's kind of like that lease deal that pretty much went down in Brooklyn. It was like, hey, he probably wasn't gonna be there that long. He was
Right.
there for literally a year. He only played 16 games with KD and Kyrie, but it was like, hey, let's do this win now, go all in, this win now mentality, and try to get a ring out of it. Kind of like what Toronto did with Kawhi, but it didn't seem to, it didn't pan out as we saw.
Yeah. Now, trade that I want to talk about next is not a trade that happened on the NBA trade deadline, but it's one that I think it's a very important one in the fact that people were scratching their heads, and that was
Yeah.
Sabonis being traded for Tyler Halliburton of the Kings, and I'll admit in the beginning I was like, what are the Kings doing trading Halliburton, a young stud, second season, looks like he's on his way to being a great NBA player, could maybe get all-star potential for sure, could so he has the skill. So people were like, what are you doing, right? But when you pull back from it, I kind of like this move for Sacramento because they get Sabonis, who's a bona fide all-star. I think he's a two-time all-star, and he's the cornerstone of their team. He's immediately their best player, and Tyler Halliburton is not the player that Sabonis is, and the fact that Halliburton is on his way to becoming the player that Sabonis is, with all-star representations already under his belt. So the Kings, they're what I think they're a couple, like, a game and a half behind of the 10 seed in the Western Conference. So they're trying to make a playoff push. Look, Sacramento hasn't sniffed the playoffs since early 2000s. So for them to even at least make the plane, that'll be something to give the fan base and be like, look, we're trying. The Kings front office, we're trying. So I like this move. And for the Pacers, they hit the reset button once again. They get a younger player who, like I said, I could definitely see All-Star in his future.
Okay, that's fair. I'm gonna have to disagree with you a little bit. I wasn't too whatever about this trade. Well, I should tell you, Halliburton. Like I remember, like last year when he was a rookie, like I had him win the Rookie of the Year. Like I was
Right.
like, hey, like, this guy could be sneaky. Like I mean, granted, Lamelo Ball ended up winning it, but for a little bit there, Halliburton looked pretty solid. He seemed, at one point to be a front runner, and I think with the point you're making, I would agree if this was the case where Halliburton had been in the league 5-6 years, but the fact that he's only in year two, and to see just like the steady growth that he's been making already, halfway through year two, and for you to just kind of like up and be like, all right, bro, like, we're good.
Yeah.
And it's like no disrespect to Sabonis. I mean, like you said, I mean, he's a solidified star. I mean, he's a two-time all-star already. Like,
Right.
you know what you're gonna get out of him. It isn't like, it's a bad player, but I just feel like longevity wise, um, with Halliburton, I felt like once again that they really didn't get a chance to see, like, what he could do. So depending on what happens in Indiana, if this guy the trajectory that he's on. That's a hard word for me to say. If this dude ends up becoming like an all-star in Indiana, and all of a sudden the Pacers are on the come up, you're gonna kind of look at this. This could be one of those things where you look at this deal and you're looking at the Kings like, bro, like what were you thinking? Like like you know, it isn't like the kid sucks. Like he's pretty decent. I mean, the numbers that he's putting up in year two, are solid. He's been super efficient. So that's where I'm just kind of like, yeah, I get that you're getting the Montes bonus, but I mean, did you really have to give up Tyrese Halliburton? That seems like
I
a
mean,
guy
there
where
was,
it's like, no way you're touching this guy.
if you're gonna get something for I mean, if a team's gonna give up Sabonis, they needed something back, another cornerstone, and that's what Halliburton is. He's a cornerstone, But look, to your point, Halliburton felt hurt by what happened. Your friend James Boyd, he asked him a question
Yeah.
at Pacers practice, and he pretty much said, "I put a lot of trust in Sacramento, and they just got rid of me." So this was unexpected, and that's why I wanted to spend time on this trade, because everybody was like, "What?" Because we all saw Halliburton play, and he was a legit contender for Rookie of the Year, legit contender, So obviously, LaMelo Ball took it, but that's how good he was. That coming out of well, I guess the rookie class last year, nobody was talking about Halliburton, and at the end of the season, people were talking about Halliburton.
Right.
So no, I think for
And
him,
to do it at Sacramento at that too.
at that, at that, so yeah, so that's a trade that had everybody up in but up in their heads, I guess. But another trade that I guess we should have seen coming, and perhaps was maybe a couple years late, was CJ McCollum finally gets traded out of Portland, and he gets traded to the New Orleans Pelicans. Alex, this is a trade that signals a lot of things, right? And I guess for the first thing it signals that the pairing of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum didn't quite work out with the team that they had. I think the farthest they got with the Western Conference Finals, they lost to the Golden State Warriors, if I'm not mistaken. And then also for the Trailblazers, they have to hit the reset button fast and rebuild around Damian Lillard now, but it has to be fast because he's over 30. He's not the player that he was. He can still put the points, but he's a bit older player. I guess you can consider him veteran now. But CJ McCollum to the Pelicans, I think that's a good pickup for the Pelicans. CJ McCollum, he can still give you points. He's definitely not going to be the main score. I think that's Brandon Ingram still, which I think that's the dynamic that I would think we should keep an eye on, is how does that play? Because Brandon Ingram was the man until Zion comes back, and then I guess Zion is the man, obviously. So that's gonna be interesting, the dynamic, how CJ McCollum incorporates himself. But I think it's gonna work out. I mean, the Pelicans are also making a push for the playoffs. They're right now in the 10th seed, so for them, this is a move that helps them make the play-in at the very least. So yeah, so CJ McCollum out of Portland and now a Pelican, Alex.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think for the Pelicans to pick up McCollum, I think the hope is that at some point in the second half of the season, you get a healthy Zion. If Brandon Ingram does his thing, and you have McCollum, he fits in the fold. Like, you can make a little playoff run. I mean, I'm not saying that the Pelicans are gonna be making a Western Conference finals run by any means, but it puts them in a positive trajectory that, hey, we could be, a little playoff team, and hopefully, attract, some type of free agency, moving forward. So, what helps with the Pelicans is that they're young. They're hopefully on on the come up, per se. So they kind of had that going from that. Like, they're not in a win now mentality. But
Right.
on the flip side with Portland, you've had Damian Lillard, who's been balling out there his whole career, and for whatever reasons, well, I mean, we kind of know some of the reasons. They haven't been able to really make a deep push in the playoffs. I think for the most part they get bounced in the second round. I felt like there was one year, I'm trying to think if it was in 2018, where I think they made the Western Conference Final, but they had no, I take that back. I think it was a second round exit. They went to Game 7 against Denver, and I think that was the
Mm,
year they made a Western Conference Finals run. So I
yeah.
take that back. Nonetheless, They haven't been able to make that deep playoff run, and ultimately, make the finals. And Damian Lillard has played phenomenally. MVP has had a couple MVP caliber years in Portland, and you kind of are scratching your head or wondering, all right, with this McCollum trade, are they really trying to gain as many assets as possible to make a splash, in the offseason, or whatever, to get someone big? Because, there definitely is the question mark of, are they going to be able to, keep Damian Lillard? Like, we don't know. I truly believe like Lillard wants to stay there, but at the same time, it's like, yo, help me out because I really want to
Right.
win too. It's like I definitely want to win here, but I need help. And you kind of wonder like, okay, what is Portland, gonna do exactly? And I think this is sort of like that first domino that needed to fall, with CJ McCollum. But now it's, once again, it's now that question mark. Okay, but what are they gonna do next? Like, what are they gonna be able to do to, upgrade this team to be able to make, you know, that playoff push and be able to, contend for a championship, which we kind of expected them to do at some point with these years they've had with Lillard.
Definitely. So, and I think that's the other scenario is what's going to happen in Portland. As it stands, they are. Let's look at the standings. They are right outside the playoff picture. They're battling the Pelicans and the Kings for that 10th spot. Uh, so who's to say that after this season, say that they don't make the playoffs or the play-in tournament, they have Damian Lillard says, I think it's time for me to move on. Like, it could be that kind of situation. So that maybe
Right.
that's more of an off-season conversation. But it's definitely something to look to look towards. Um, you know, the next trade that I want to talk about is one that happened to a team. A team made a move, but this team, Alex, nobody, and I think nobody predicted them to be in this position. And I'm talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're in the fourth spot in the seat in the East. They're 34-21, tied with the Chicago Bulls, one game behind the Bucks, and by 1.5 games from the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yes, that sounds weird to say, considering that nobody expected this from them, but they have a solid squad. Rookie of the year to date, Evan Mobley. But they made a trade for Karis LeVert of the Pacers. Karis LeVert famously was involved in the James Harden trade. But now they get Karis LeVert because they've been missing that scorer from the wing, somebody to create off the dribble. So and I think this is what gives them that. And it also reunites Karis LeVert with Jared Allen from the Nets, and in their first game back, you saw the kind of connection that they still had. So I like this move for the Cavs. This move signals to them that, hey, yes, we have injured players, but just because we have those injured players doesn't mean we don't want to keep fighting for where we are. And look, they may not make a lot of noise in the playoffs because they are still a young team, but just making them in the playoffs is going to make them so much better in the long term.
Oh yeah, man. I think everybody loves this pickup by the Cavs. And honestly, I hope this is finally the place that Karis LeVert can call home. Because I really felt like, obviously before the whole James Harden stuff with the Nets, like him, Jared Allen, like the Nets had a team on the come up with a lot of young guys. And I mean, they kind of blew that up to, get a big name. And, that's fair. Like if you have the opportunity to get a guy like James Harden, then, you're going to do whatever you can. And then for him to go from there, because he went to Indiana, and I know he had the little heart issue where that was a little bit scary. We weren't sure how long he was going to be out, and I thought Indiana would be a nice fit for him as well. And but now seeing this trade with Cleveland, it's like, honestly, I don't know about you, but the Cavs took me quite off guard. Like, I did not expect them by any means to do anything at all. And for them to be in the playoff picture with a young team that they got, it's like, hey, to add Harris LeVert into the mix now with Jared Allen, to to bring that chemistry that they had back in Brooklyn now into an up and coming Cavs team is, it's interesting. It
I
really
mean,
is.
Karis LeVert is only 27. He's still a young player.
Yeah.
He was drafted, I think, the 2016 NBA draft. So, and if there's one thing he can do is he can score. so he can score. He's not a great shooter, but he just knows how to score the ball. He knows how to put that orange ball into the net and swish. So that's what he knows how to do. So I think everybody likes the Cavs because they're that underdog story. Because like I said, nobody thought they were gonna do anything this season. So
Hmm.
shout out to them and shout out to JB. Burgers, can't, the Cavs coach. I'm blanking out. It's JB Burgerstaff. His father was a coach too. I'm blanking out on this coach.
Brick, brick, but ooh, damn, why am I blanking on his name too?
Bickerstaff.
There you go.
JB Bickerstaff. Yeah, I can't believe. Yeah, he was an interim head coach here with the Houston Rockets for I think 3/4 of a season after they fired Kevin McHale, and he always he I thought he had potential to be a coach, needed a little bit more seasoning, and he got that seasoning. I think he was with Memphis Grizzlies for a short stint, and the Cavs gave him a good run, and he's proven that he's a good, solid coach. He's built himself up, and the players have bought in. Clearly, have bought in
Yeah, I
to
mean,
what they're doing. So shout
look
out to
at
the
Darius
Cavs.
Garland. We even talk about him, and he's an all star.
Oh, man, yes. I mean, playing in his hometown, Darius
Yeah.
Garland, who, hey, he is. I need to learn more about Darius Garland. From the games I've seen, the clips, I'm like, this guy can just shoot. These guys just start like I think I don't know if he was, but he was nearing that 50-40-90 club this season. So and
Ooh,
if
I
not,
actually didn't know that.
yeah, I think he lost it, but it just shows the potential that he has that in him to have a 50-40-90 season. And I think even Steph Curry said that was one of the players that most reminded him of him with the consistency. So yeah, there is Garland. Um, so the Cavs making a run. We'll see. One team that I started off the season well and that I thought could sustain it was the Washington Wizards, but injuries, especially to Bradley Beal, who's now out for the rest of the season, and just the team kind of pull apart from each other. So they're going the opposite direction from the Cleveland Cavaliers. But they made a move, Alex, for Kristaps Porzingis of the Dallas Mavericks. And I gotta say, out of all the trades today, this was the one out of left field, just because there were no inklings, rumors, breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
nothing that
Yep.
the maps were shopping Porzingis. Every now and then it would just be in passing. Oh, maybe the map should consider trading him, but that was just journalists, press, media people just kind of saying it. But there were no rumors, no inkling, at least from things that I had read. So this was my most surprise trade of today, Alex.
Yeah. When I saw his name pop up, I'm like Kristaps. I was like, what? Like and then I saw like he's going to Washington. I'm like, why the hell is he going to Washington? I'm like, that's just random. And I mean, like part of it like doesn't surprise me because I felt like he didn't really click with Luca out there in Dallas as quickly as they thought they would per se. It seemed like on paper it was like, hey, like that's a nice little duo right there that they got in Dallas. It's just that Kristaps needs to be healthy, and for a little bit it seemed like uh um he was playing for a little bit like he actually was kind of healthy, but then you started hearing the chatter of, oh, he wants to be more involved in the offense. He kind of felt like, hey, like everything's revolved around Luca. He's like, I want a little bit, I want a piece of the pie. And it's kind of like, well, I mean, Luca is pretty good. I mean, he could be one
Speaking
of
of Luca, pretty
right.
good.
Right.
As you're speaking and saying, he
Mm.
wants more of the ball. We're recording this Thursday night. Doncic just dropped 51 career high win in the Clippers. So
So
yeah,
yeah, I
Luca is
mean,
gonna get the ball. I'm
right.
sorry.
I'm sorry, but dude, if Luke is playing like that, like you're gonna you're gonna revolve the offense around him. Like, I'm sorry. All right, man. This ain't what happened with the Knicks. So, yeah, man. It just didn't seem like he got a sense of comfort with Dallas or really got in a groove there. And then, of course, once again, injuries popped up again where you didn't see him on the court a whole lot and most recently. So I think part of the thing with this trade too is kind of like, man, like Kristaps barely been playing. Like, why is he getting traded? Like, why does Washington want him? Like, well, what's he gonna do over there? So it's
Tim Tim Legler on the ESPN NBA Today draft show. He said, they call him the unicorn for his ability to like stretch the floor. He was 7'3", he had a sweet touch. But I think he's the unicorn because you never see him. That was good. So I was like,
I
good on
mean,
Tim.
yeah,
I like that.
it's
It's true, and it goes exactly to what you're saying. Injuries piled up. Now I will say this: Kristaps not in Washington. It's his team because Bradley Beal is out for the season. And what else do they have really?
yeah,
Kyle Kuzma. So now Kristaps, you want the ball, you're gonna get the ball. Now is your time to show the NBA that you can carry a team, that you can be the guy. This is gonna be his opportunity for the rest of the season. A couple more trades that I want to talk to before we get out of here, Alex. Norman Powell and Robert Covington to the Clippers from the Portland Trailblazers. I think this is a great pickup by the Clippers. Very smart, gives them more wing depth. These are two players that can help them right now, and then also when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George return. Very players that are very switchable, can guard multiple positions. Great sneaky pickup by the Clippers.
yeah, yeah. I mean, hell, they need it. Like I'm not holding my breath to say that Paul George and Kawhi, come back anytime soon. At that, so whatever wing support they can get. I mean, I agree with you. I like the move. I don't think it's anything that or any move that's gonna blow people away. It's just like, hey, they filled a need, per se, and that's pretty much it. That's what it is. So, nothing major. It's like, hey, they were they were weak on excuse me, as far as wing players, and they got that. So I mean, for the time being, hopefully, if for some reason Kawhi and Paul George come back in time, for a deep playoff push, I think that's where you're kind of like, hey, like this move, is really having an impact this year. But I think it's something that's sort of a little more for not the long term, but going into like next season when hopefully, those guys come back and are fully healthy.
This next trade I think has the potential to for the best potential to be a top 10 on ESPN, a play that gets us talking. That's Montrezl Harrell to the Charlotte Hornets. And I say that because I can just imagine LaMelo Ball throwing some alley hoops to Montrezl. And if you've seen Montrezl dunk, he's mad. He's angry
Yeah,
when he throws it down. It's like if the rim says something about Montrezl's mama or something, because he just takes it out on the rim. You've seen him dunk. He is
yeah,
mean when he dunks. So I think this great pickup for the Charlotte Hornets. Another body, uh, big man that can help him in the playoffs. Has playoff experience. Won a ring with the Lakers, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yes. Uh,
yeah.
uh,
Yep.
in the bubble season. So I think just a player that has a sweet touch in the mid range, rebound. Pretty much, it's a double machine. So it's a good pickup for the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, you kind of said it. It's a nice pickup. I think it'll be a nice compliment to Lamelo, just having another body to uh to help score, especially down low too. And I think once again, like Montrezl Harrell has a nice little touch. I just think he could be a little bit more consistent with it, and I think that's sort of my thing with him. But yeah, I mean, I like the pickup. I'm not mad at it.
In the last trade, we go to the defending world champions Milwaukee Bucks. I feel this is going to be the one trade that is going to pay dividends for them in the playoffs. And that's they picked up Serge Ibaka on a trade with the Clippers. Clippers got the Vincenzo. I hope I'm saying the name right.
Dante DiVincenzo.
DiVincenzo, there you go. Whew, that one got me. But I think it's a great pickup by the Bucks, especially with Lopez being out. The Demarcus Cousins experiment didn't work out. I thought it was. I was completely wrong. So I am an idiot for that. But I think this Serge Ibaka pickup, I think it's a good one. You get a rim protector, someone that can hit the mid range, someone that can rebound, playoff experience, championship winning experience. So I think it's a good pickup. I think they need Sergio Ibaka more so in the playoffs than right now in the regular season. I mean, Bucks are 35-21, one game behind the Heat in the Eastern Conference. So yeah, it's a good pickup.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I like the point that you make about come playoff time. Like I'm pretty sure that Milwaukee's gonna be a playoff team, whether it be uh 1 seed, 2 seed, whatever. I'm pretty sure they're not gonna be uh a playing team by any means, but yeah, come playoff time, hopefully by then Brooke Lopez is back and fully healthy, so that also has depth where Ibaka could come in as sort of with that second unit. And once again, a veteran, he's been there before. He's won a championship before. Milwaukee is just coming off a championship, so there's a lot of playoff and championship experience now on that team, or a fresh championship experience. So yeah, I mean with Serge Ibaka, like you said, rim protector. You get some consistency out of him. I think solid leadership too. So yeah, I mean it's a nice pickup, and I think for a playoff run, that's like you said, it's gonna pay dividends. I like that word, dividends. Just
Dividends,
sounds
pay
smart.
dividends.
Yeah.
Yes, dividends. Now, those were not all the trades that happened. There were a couple other minor
No.
trades that happened. That's how wild it was. But this is only supposed to be a half-hour show, so we're definitely a little bit over it. But before we get out here, Alex, it's Super Bowl weekend. Um, I just gotta ask, who's your well, not who's your team, but I know your team is the Bears. But out of these two teams, who do you got? Who's your winner? Let us have it.
So I got the Rams winning, but I'm not like confident in it. Cause I mean, for Cincinnati, I mean, not a lot of people except for maybe Bengals fans expected them to make this run. I mean, they're
Fact,
just
yeah.
super, they're just super hot right now. My only thing
Hey,
is that
sometimes all it takes is being hot at the right time in the NFL.
right, yeah, that's the Giants did it twice, so I mean, we shouldn't be surprised, but it's the Bengals, so it's like they haven't done anything. Like for as long as I've been alive, the
Yep.
Bengals have pretty much just been irrelevant. They
Right,
had
right.
Chad Johnson, TJ Hushmanzada, Carson Palmer for a couple years, so I mean that was pretty much it. Um, but yeah, I think I still roll with the Rams just by a little bit. I think they got just enough firepower to get them through. But hey, for Cincinnati to come and beat the 1 seed Titans, even though like my big thing is that they don't have a great offensive line, but Joe Burrow got sacked like 9 times against Tennessee, and they still won that game. And then they
Right.
went into Kansas City, and then they won that game too. Not that I mean he got sacked that much, but still to go into um, road games like that, in the playoffs, like those are tough places to play, and to now be in the Super Bowl, it's like, hey man, give the Bengals their flowers a little bit, because I mean they deserve to be there.
I want the Bengals to just go in there and just beat the Rams, just because because the Rams are essentially hosting the Super Bowl. Let's
Yeah,
call it what it
yeah,
is. So I
yeah,
want the Bengals to go in there and just ruin it for them. And plus, they're the underdog story, and I like their quarterback Joe Burrow. He just seems he has this like kind of like Joe Montana esque feel to him, just very cool. He's just cool guy, cool Joe.
yeah,
But ultimately, I'll say, not because I'm not a fan of either team. I just want a good game, because we have to say,
yeah,
shout out to the NFL. This has been one of the best playoffs I can remember in a long, long time. I feel like every
yeah.
game was like to the wire,
Yeah, I want
to
to say
the
like the whole
wire.
divisional round, like every game was decided by like a game-winning field goal or by less than three
Exactly.
points or something like that. So yeah, man, players have been entertaining this year. So hopefully
So
the big
hopefully
one is just
that's
as good.
that's what we want, right? The big one to be just as good. So football gods, make it happen. So pretty much that's it. That's our comeback episode. We kind of went over our 4 topics. Next week we'll get back to our 4 topic half-hour show.
It's
But
been
this
a
was
while,
good.
so we
It's been a while.
gave the people a little extra because it's
A
been so
little
long.
extra. It's been so long. I know you love our voices, listeners. but with that, faithful listeners, thank you so much for coming back and listening to us. We're gonna be consistent now, weekly, until our next break at the end of the year, and then we'll go into season 3 and then start the whole thing over and over and over and over. But yeah, so so with that said, enjoy Super Bowl weekend. Thank you so much, and don't forget to subscribe. See ya.
Deuces.